Hey, we're Saints. Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixional life. I'm glad to have you beautiful people with us. So we've been having some fun. A couple of days, we're talking about marriage this week, and a couple of days ago, one of our warrior saints, Tyler, threw out a question that said, hey, how do non-married, single human beings, date unto marriage within the Orthodox context, which was a great question. And it led to yesterday's conversation about, compiling a list. And it was, I said a list of like the qualities that you're looking for in a spouse is really important, so that as you're out there, it's not willy-nilly, but you're able to really see if the things that matter to you that will take you to the next level are also in this person that you're dating, which led to a great private email from my cousin John in Australia. Thanks, cuz he called it the shopping list. And I was like, that is so funny. It was pretty funny. His shopping list, kudos to John. It was interesting. He said, the things you talked about were all things that happened in his marriage 48 years ago. So God bless you. Enjoy, buddy. I love it, cuz God give you many, many more years. So that leads to today's conversation, which is, hey, what's the modus operandi? How do we live within marriage? And I think that thing which guides us should be from the Apostle Paul himself. Now, in Ephesians chapter 5, there is something that's called the wedding chapter, right? Or the wedding section, the epistle, whatever. It's actually called as such because within the Orthodox Christian Church, it is the epistle that is read during the sacrament of marriage. So we read it at our weddings. And it talks about husbands and wives and submit and love and all that kind of stuff. So in the heart of this pericope, Paul says that, and he speaks to husbands, but I think it applies also to the gals. Husbands must love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it, right? So you can see that. That's verse 25, right? Did I say that right? Chapter 5, 25 of Ephesians. The way that we live within marriage, as presented to us by the world, as presented to us in secular manners, is really self-focused, right? What will he or she, my spouse, bring to me? What will they give to me? I am not getting what I need, right? Which leads to our conversation tomorrow, about divorce, which is so rampant. How do I find in this marriage all of the things that I want? And the problem is that kind of mentality is horribly wrong. And you can see it. I'm not even wrong in saying that. You know it because the statistics that talk about failed marriages, at least in our country, are 50% or more. Can you imagine that? So 1 out of every 2 marriages is going to end in divorce. I mean, that's insane to me, right? So it's telling us that somehow the way we're doing marriage isn't working, which is what Paul says completely counterintuitively. You must be sacrificial. In all things, you must die to yourself for the sake of the other person, right? You can see his message, and yet we don't do it, right? How do we as warrior saints, as we're looking for spouses, as we're dating people into marriage, and within the context of marriage itself, how do we operate? We must operate crucifixionally. That's what that means, right? This verse itself is really one of the foundations for the idea that we as warrior saints came up with about being crucifixional. The death of self for the sake of other. The death of self in order to do God's will. The death of ego to replace my will with his. I mean, that's the whole message of being crucifixional. And interestingly enough, even though it sounds like, well, you're asking me to die to myself, yet when you do so, your marriage will be not good, but great. In fact, if you are not willing to be crucifixional in your marriage and your spouse likewise, you really have no shot. You're on your way to that 1 out of every 2. I mean, God help us, right? It's a scary thing. I can tell you that being crucifixional within the confines of marriage, within the relationship, within the life, it seems counterintuitive, like, you're asking me to give it all away, but when you give it all away, you get all of it and more back. And so does your spouse when you do that together. Does that make sense? So how do we find in our life the tools, the guidance, the map, the plan to live crucifixionally? Well, I mean, you can go out there, like the world you can give them a shot, but they're not going to help you. We have our battle plan. That's why we did it, is to help you become someone who's crucifixional in your life, so that when you turn around in marriage, you're able to say, I'm doing it. And it works, right? We even have in our battle plan, one of the modules is about relationships. We call it the heart, focusing on the heart. And the relationship aspect teaches us within the confines of relating to other human beings, but also within marriage in particular. And look, I'm telling you, it works. I'll end with this. For years when I was a younger man and I was, before I started dating my bride, I went out with a lot of girls, lovely people. And, I was in many cases very, very self-focused. And you know what? Didn't work out. I probably wasn't good. They weren't good. It's just, it is what it is. But when I started to date my bride, I, for whatever reason, by God's grace, decided to be as selfless as I could. And let me tell you, she's certainly a selfless human being. And you know what? We're now entering 27. I mean, not as many as my cousin John, but we're getting there, baby. We're coming. And it's, it's been beautiful and blessed. I'm not saying I'm better than you. I'm saying that I'm willing to do the work that Paul is calling us to live a crucifixional life, and it works, baby. And if you want it, if you want to find that in your own marriage, in your own life, it's pretty easy. I put a battle plan there. Go get it. I mean, it's up to you. I love it. We're going to be back tomorrow to talk about what happens when you don't live crucifixionally in your marriage. Till then, as always, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.